This video will cover, in more of a general way, some of the spoilers from the leaks for episode 8 of House of the Dragon season 2. It has not aired yet, so I don't want to ruin this for you. I don't want to ruin the show for you. If you do not want to see spoilers or talk about spoilers, if you want to avoid anything spoiler related, now is the time to click off. Again, I'm going to try to speak as generally as possible, but I may touch on a couple of specifics. If you want to avoid spoilers, I cannot stress this enough. This is your final warning. So if you're still here, I hope that you are okay with any potential spoilers that would arise here during this video. Now, this is really just a discussion. I got the leaks last night, and I've been really reluctant on how I want to share that information and whether I should share that information. I guess I'm going to rule that I'll talk about it, but ultimately, if you really want this show, this season finale spoiled for you, it's easy to find. You can find the leaks on Twitter. They're probably on TikTok, maybe somewhere on YouTube as well. But the reason why I want to talk about it is because I heard from others, other fans, other content creators that focus on A Song of Ice and Fire, they were pretty disappointed by what was within the leaks. Not so much that the series has been leaked at all. And that's what I actually take bigger issue with. It's not so much as to of what's in the leaks. I have a problem that these things happen. I don't like that they happen because a lot of times we get these scenes and there's missing context, and while people can elaborate and they can dig deeper and find the context before the episode airs on Sunday nights, I just don't feel like it's the best way to experience this. For one, you're not getting the same atmosphere because it's shot, it's not because it's shot differently, but the way that they look like bootleg films, basically, the leaks that we get. So it's not the best way to experience it, and then it's not wrapped in the context of the episode itself. However, there's things in here that I'm going to talk about. So Damon's visions. So there's a few things that are there. You know, they intertwine obviously with Alice Rivers, but then he does see the army of the dead, the White Walkers, and he does see Daenerys' dragons being hatched. And I heard other people, other channels say, wow, I don't know that I like this at all. And I guess my biggest problem, and I'll elaborate on this after the episode airs on Sunday, that way we have the full context, which I think is important. But referencing Game of Thrones, you know, House of the Dragon was never going to be entirely its own thing. I just released a video about kind of this subject matter yesterday, and this is kind of consistent with that, where House of the Dragon no longer wishes to be its own thing. I don't think it's ever wanted to be its own thing. Sure, you know, the same theme music and stuff like that, but visually, I thought it had its own unique style. It's almost, you know, the tone, the color palette that they use for these scenes are a little different from Game of Thrones, and it gave it its own signature, I thought, in a lot of ways. I thought some of the CGI choices with the dragons were a lot better, and, you know, I thought it could be its own thing. It doesn't seem that it wants to be anymore. And it's not, you know, my problem isn't that it's trying to reference Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire or the source material. The issue is that it's looking at Game of Thrones, prioritizing that and tying into that over the source material, over A Song of Ice and Fire or Fire and Blood. I don't think Fire and Blood is great as far as being something adapted compared to A Song of Ice and Fire. I've gone over this, but you're straying away from the source material, and, you know, you're embellishing these other ideas. So it just doesn't stand on its own now. It doesn't feel something that's confined to this time and space in Westeros, and I really don't know that I'm a fan of that. We'll find out. We'll have the full episode. You know, there's some other things within the leaks. I mean, Helena is explored a lot more and almost more bluntly, where we've been developing this mystery, and I've had an issue not seeing enough of Helena. I want to see her character or her story expanded on a little bit more, and we haven't really gotten that. Now, in these leaks, we're seeing her communicate in a way that's far more straightforward, and it's not up for interpretation. She's being listened to, and whether she's being taken seriously or if she's having this conversation with Aemond, I don't know what they're going to do with that exactly. Eamon seems to be ignoring her. And then she basically just spoils the rest of the series. It feels that way in a lot of ways. Like it spoils significant factors into this series. And then Alice Rivers did something similar. She says that Damon's going to die in Harrenhal. Well, in this leaks episode, we're having Helena tell Aemond that he's going to die in the God's Eye. I don't think I really like this. There's one thing to build intrigue for the future and maybe foreshadow things, but this is just outright telling us what's about to happen or what's going to happen. And, so if they don't do that and what are they going to do? Are they going to subvert our expectations? Are they going to do the Game of Thrones thing and just try to trick us? I don't know, but I don't like that they are not foreshadowing this. This is not story development. This isn't storytelling. It's spoiling its own story in a lot of ways. So I could have all my issues with the leaks, but when the show itself is spoiling something that's going to happen either in season 3 or maybe even season 4, it's hard to defend or be upset or offended that this episode leaks because, the show itself is basically doing the exact same thing. Now, if you're a show only fan, I think you're still going to experience this and feel really good about it. I think you're going to like this. I think you're going to like this episode. I think you're going to feel a little bit more compelled by it. You might find a lot of this stuff a little bit more interesting. Book fans, I think you are going to be infuriated, especially if you're a little bit more loyal to the source material. I'm not, and I don't know how I feel about the direction that they're going. I'm not loyal to Fire and Blood or the presentation of the Dance of the Dragons in Fire and Blood. I'm okay with House of the Dragon kind of doing its own thing. But I know where the story is going. I know the certain plot beats that they're trying to hit from the source material. And now they're kind of disrupting that a little bit. They're contextualizing it. That's okay. But I don't know. You guys are going to have to tell me what you think if you've seen the spoilers. I'm really 50-50 on this. I'm not encouraged by what I've seen. I'm not excited about what I've seen. But if I were a show only fan, I'm trying to think about it in that context. I think I would be okay. I think show only fans are going to be probably okay with this, at least more okay with it than book fans. I think show only fans might come across episode 8 and think nothing of it. And that's something you need to take into consideration too, is that if you are unfamiliar with the source material, this is all probably just fine. It's probably pretty good. Your least favorite 2 episodes were probably episode 5 and 6 if you're a show only fan. So I think, we'll see what happens, or what people think here moving forward. There's another scene there with Alicent going back to Rhaenyra, which makes Rhaenyra going to King's Landing, in episode 3, kind of even more unnecessary because we are getting this. They are reuniting here at the end of the season, so why do we need to have this in episode 3? And I'm wondering, did the writer strikes have a lot to do with this? I'm going to dig into a lot of that for a video that I'm doing with kind of a comparison between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. But since Alicent does go to visit Rhaenyra, and I don't want to spoil everything as much as possible. I really don't want to, but these leaks are out there and we're discussing those leaks. But I'm not going to get into the conversation of Alicent and Rhaenyra. I feel like that's divulging too much. If that's what you want to know, you can go look at the leaks yourself. The episode's going to be out on Sunday. But just the concept of Alicent going to go visit Rhaenyra, it really does make, for one, the impact of her doing that is lessened by Rhaenyra going to go visit her in episode 3. And it's moments like this where I feel like you guys have something really interesting going on here, something exciting that we could dive into, and you're kind of cutting your legs out from under yourself. And the same thing with basically spoiling like your future plot moments, plot points in the future by these visions. These visions are supposed to be open to interpretation. Oh, what does that mean? And I'm not really too sure. And again, if you're a show only fan, maybe these visions don't bother you all that much, but they're pretty explicitly stated. They're not very implicit. So there's a couple other things that I saw in the leaks. You can go look them up yourself, but the major thing is a lot of people look at Damon too as, hey, does this kind of discount his entire character arc of this entire season? Him turning back to Rhaenyra, not because he felt and realized that everything he's been doing up until this point, this self-reflection, he has not been a good person. You know, he hasn't been good to Rhaenyra, he hasn't been good to his brother Viserys, and the reason he hasn't is due to strictly his selfish attempt to achieve his own glory. That's kind of, is that undercut by him only wanting to serve her now because he saw the visions of the White Walkers, he saw the future, and he knows that a bigger threat awaits them, and now he believes that the prophecy from Viserys that was shared from Aegon the Conqueror is that a Targaryen needs to be on the throne, and Viserys chose Rhaenyra, so now he's in line, he's getting in line, and now he's truly loyal to Rhaenyra at this point. I mean, man, you know, when you compare this to like the Jaime Lannister arc in Storm of Swords, or, you know, from season 1 to season 3 of Game of Thrones, I thought that they were taking their time in building that up to try to achieve something similar with Damon, and I think they are kind of throwing that out the window here. Because, you know, there isn't this redeeming moment. There's not a redeeming act that Damon performs. It's just, oh, my mind's changed because I can see the future now. And I think that's, you know, a little bit more shallow as far as storytelling. But you guys tell me what you guys think if you saw the leaks. I don't want to get into this any further than I have until the episode is actually out. Because, again, I want the full episode to better contextualize it. But this stuff is out there. I hate leaks. I think it really does ruin things. It reminds me of The Last of Us Part 2, if you guys play video games. And, you know, they got this series now, the TV adaptation on HBO. But The Last of Us Part 2, again, they made some creative choices that absolutely were unpopular among like half of the fan base. But with it being leaked and without any type of context or anything, you just get the worst part of that, the part that's going to be the most difficult to digest as a fan. And that stuff leaked months before the game was eventually released. So then you go into the game and that story that you experience in that game, and you've already got this negative opinion of it. And that's the issue that I have with, you know, it's kind of sociology in a lot of ways. You hear enough people say all these bad things about the leaks, and that does start to have an influence on you. You start to be influenced by, you know, other commenters that you typically agree with, you know, and the amount of influence that other people have over us, I think, is really understated when it comes to things like this. You have enough people tell you something sucks long enough, whether you like it or not, you're going to start to agree with them. And if they say that it's awesome and you actually thought it wasn't very good, eventually you'll start to, well, let me look at this again, you know, let me try to look at it from their angle. But stuff like that is a lot more prominent, I think, when you have these leaks, especially when they're negative. Now we're all going to run into episode 8. I would not be surprised if episode 8 gets review bombed. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw with episode 6, but for much different reasons. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but I think there's a lot of negative energy that's going to be coming into Sunday's episode for the season finale of House of the Dragon season 2. And I think that's unfortunate. I would have liked to have been able to experience organically. I could have avoided the leak, so it's kind of my fault, right? But that's all I got to say about that. You know, for more House of the Dragon content, you can go ahead and click right here.